We'll have the Queen's speech on the 14th of October. I hope then it will concentrate the minds of people who have consistently voted against every single withdrawal agreement, that if they do not then vote for an agreement, actually vote for something rather than just voting against every single thing, then it will be them who will be responsible for us leaving the EU without a deal on the 31st of October. I don't want that to happen. And that's certainly not the preferred option of the government, and has never been the preferred option of me. But we have got to bring this thing to a head. It cannot drag on for any longer. Hello, I just wanted to give an update on where we are in Brexit, particularly in the context of the announcement yesterday that the Queen has agreed for Parliament to be prorogued. Now, let's just look at the facts. Parliament's not been suspended or shut down. Parliament is going to be prorogued, which means a new session will start on October the 14th, and we're actually going to lose all of 4 days of what might have been sitting days by Parliament being prorogued. Parliament should have been prorogued over a year ago. This is the longest session we've had in Parliament, apparently for more than 350 years. And lots of opponents of Brexit and of the government have been saying, for goodness sake, we need a Queen's speech. We are now going to have a Queen's speech on the 14th of October. That will set out the new government's agenda for the coming year. It's also almost 3 weeks before the deadline for Brexit of October the 31st, giving plenty of time for a deal to be agreed by Parliament, which is what I want and what the government wants and what most people in this country want. But these are exceptional times, and so many people have got completely ground down and exasperated by the failure, almost more than now 3 years after we voted to leave the European Union, that still it's not been achieved. It was delayed from March, it was delayed from May, and now people are talking about delaying it again from the end of October. At the beginning of this week, there was a meeting in Jeremy Corbyn's office with all the opposition leaders and various others who have consistently voted against all the withdrawal agreements going through Parliament. That's despite the fact that 80%, more than 80% of all MPs voted to have the referendum on our membership of the EU. And then after that, more than 80% voted to trigger Article 50, which started that withdrawal process. In 406 constituencies up and down the country, local people voted to leave. And yet there are many MPs representing those constituencies who've actually done their darndest to frustrate any attempts by Parliament to agree a deal and actually make Brexit a reality. And that is where the fault lies. At the last of the 3 votes we had on the withdrawal agreement, all but 7 Labour MPs voted against the agreement. All the Liberal Democrats, the Scottish Nationalists, the Welsh Nationalists and others voted against the agreement. 89% of Conservative MPs, including me, voted for that agreement because I want to honour the result of that referendum. So what has now happened is we've got the opposition parties who are plotting together not to come up with an alternative way of achieving Brexit, not to come up with an alternative Brexit deal, a better one as they might see it, but what they agreed on Monday was to come up with a way to change the law which would call for another extension rather than us coming out of the EU on the 31st of October. Yet more delay. The biggest damage that's being done at the moment in this country is the uncertainty over what is going to happen. Are we actually going to come out of the EU? In which case, how do we plan for that? Businesses are complaining to me that, look, they don't really mind whether we're in or out, but they want to know some certainty of where we're going to be in a year or so's time. And that's why it's so essential, and that's why I absolutely support Boris Johnson hitting the ground running, saying that we are coming out of the EU on the 31st of October, and nobody can now be in any doubt that that is going to happen. So what happened yesterday was effectively it made it harder for those people who want to prevent Brexit happening at all to prevent those people who want to honour the results of the referendum like me. We'll have the Queen's speech on the 14th of October. I hope then it will concentrate the minds of people who have consistently voted against every single withdrawal agreement, that if they do not then vote for an agreement, actually vote for something rather than just voting against every single thing, then it will be them who will be responsible for us leaving the EU without a deal on the 31st of October. I don't want that to happen. And that's certainly not the preferred option of the government, and has never been the preferred option of me. But we have got to bring this thing to a head. It cannot drag on for any longer. So on the 31st of October, we will come out of the EU, and I hope this will focus the minds of MPs who've consistently voted against a deal, that they will be able to say, okay, we will honour the vote of the referendum, that the Prime Minister will come back with a new deal, and I hope the EU leaders now are in no doubt that we are leaving the EU, so they better come up with something we can all agree on for our mutual benefit. And we can then have a vote in Parliament after the 14th of October and get this legislation through and come out of the EU on the 31st of October and get our lives back to normal. There's a huge programme of legislation that the new government wants to bring in. Boris Johnson's new priorities about levelling up the spending on education are absolutely vital, particularly in a constituency like this where we've suffered from poor education funding over many years. The additional money that's going into the health service, the 20,000 additional police officers that we desperately need to recruit, and many other things that the new Prime Minister has promised in the last few weeks. These are the priorities we need for this country, and they are being delayed and obfuscated by people who are just obsessed with trying to make sure that Brexit doesn't happen. Now, I know this is a divisive issue. I respect the many people who voted a different way. But we need to get this done. We voted to come out of the EU. We need to secure Brexit, and then we need to bring the whole country back together again. And that's why I think the measure supported, put forward by the Prime Minister yesterday, is the right way to go. And I hope now everybody will see sense and rally behind a deal that can at last make Brexit a reality and this country can move on.